All right, this one's a grim little history lesson. Today, we're looking at AAA and big studio titles that exploded into hype, launched, and then basically imploded. These are projects that either shuttered, got pulled, or lost almost their entire player base within days or weeks of launch. There are lessons here about live service, marketing, and how fragile big budgets can be if the product doesn't land. Stick around, some of these stories are wild. On the list, we have The Day Before. Let's start with a headline grabber, The Day Before. This one was Steam's most wishlisted title for a while. It carried MMO promises, huge marketing momentum, and then the launch happened and it fell apart spectacularly. Players hit the servers and found a broken, tiny extraction-style map wrapped in terrible performance, missing systems, and an experience that didn't match the marketing. Reviews cratered, refunds flooded in, and the studio basically folded in the wake of the disaster. The game was removed from sale within days, and the studio closed not long after. That's a textbook case of hype, expectations mismatch, and alleged mismanagement all colliding at launch. Why it matters? The Day Before shows how lethal overpromising is. A massive wish list doesn't equal a stable product, and when the first impressions are catastrophic, the community won't forgive sloppy execution. Next up, Concord.
Free gunner means?
Now here's one that's ugly in a different way. Concord. Sony and Firewalk shipped a high-budget hero shooter aimed at the live service space, but it couldn't find a player base. The launch numbers were tiny, sales were underwhelming, and within 2 weeks, Sony pulled the game offline, offered refunds, and closed the studio. A full-price multiplayer game in a market crowded with free-to-play competitors ran out of runway fast, and Sony admitted their live service roadmap needs rethinking after that debacle. Concord is the example you show business folk when you talk about launch timing and pricing strategy. Why it matters? When a first-run live service title can't compete for attention, even huge budgets can't save it. Concord proves a full-price model in a saturated hero shooter market is a dangerous bet. Coming up, Payday 3. Payday 3 launched with a ton of expectation. It's a franchise with hardcore fans, but the launch was rough. Server outages, online-only limitations, and then the wallets opened with monetization that left fans sour. The launch spike was dramatic, but the retention cliff was steeper. Player counts fell sharply in the weeks after release, and the game underperformed commercially against expectations, leaving the studio scrambling to pivot. Payday 3's story is a reminder that technical stability plus a fair progression model are table stakes for modern multiplayer launches. Why it matters? A big-name sequel can still not stick if the live experience is unstable or feels exploitative. Trust matters. Break that trust at launch, and the community bails faster than you can patch. On the list, we have Marvel's Avengers.
Was awesome.
Square Enix's Marvel Avengers started as a big-budget live service experiment with an amazing license, and it folded into a cautionary tale. The game launched with technical issues, a fractured progression experience, and a live service model that didn't land. Despite big content pushes, the player base never sustained, and support tapered off until the game essentially lost relevance. It's one of the more visible examples of a licensed AAA title that couldn't turn hype into a durable, evolving product. Why it matters? Huge IPs help open doors, but they don't guarantee sticky design. If the core loop feels shallow or the live service plan feels tacked on, even Avengers can struggle to survive the first year. Next up, Crucible.
Move here.
Amazon's Crucible launched as an in-house competitive shooter and lasted only a few months before Amazon pulled the plug. It launched into a crowded field, didn't hit the right monetization or retention levers, and the company cut losses fast. Crucible's shutdown is interesting because Amazon is deep-pocketed. They still didn't keep a title alive that couldn't prove immediate traction. That bold early termination shows how unforgiving multiplayer discovery is right now. Why it matters? Even giant platforms will pull the plug quickly when player numbers don't match projections. It's a brutal market for mid-tier live service launches. On the list, we have LawBreakers. Cliffy B's LawBreakers had pedigree and a strong design idea, but it never gained momentum. Despite decent reviews, the player base never rose to a sustainable level, and the studio closed not long after. LawBreakers is a reminder that great design and a famous designer aren't enough. Timing, platform reach, and market fit matter more than brand name alone. Why it matters? Innovative mechanics don't guarantee survival. If your audience is elsewhere or a dominant competitor owns the genre, even a polished launch can evaporate. Coming up, Battleborn. Battleborn is a cautionary tale about genre timing. Gearbox's colorful hero shooter launched right when Overwatch exploded, and the timing killed it. Numbers started low, support shrank, and the servers were shut down a few years later, but the game never recovered its initial launch momentum. Battleborn shows how market timing and competitor domination can bury a good product. Why it matters? Sometimes the death isn't about bugs or greed, it's about arriving late to a genre-defining moment and never carving out an audience. On the list, we have Evolve. Evolve launched on big ideas, asymmetrical matchup, monster versus hunters, shiny trailers, but DLC, monetization choices, and a shrinking player base steered it into decline. The game tried a rework and even a free-to-play relaunch, but ultimately the servers were shut down. Evolve's arc is useful. Creative design needs a sustainable business model and community goodwill to survive long-term. Why it matters? You need both an engaged core and a trustworthy economy. Without them, even the cleverest multiplayer concepts fade. Next up, Skull and Bones. Ubisoft's pirate sim Skull and Bones spent years in development and came out to mixed reception. A limited player peak, complaints about systems, and a sense that the game didn't justify its long wait. It hasn't been pulled off stores, but it's an example of a big-budget title that launched into quiet numbers and had to fight to stay relevant. Not exactly a shuttered case like Concord, but a launch that underperformed badly and needed major course correction. Why it matters? Years of development don't immune you from lukewarm launches. If the final product doesn't innovate or excite, player interest is thin and short-lived. Finally on the list, Star Wars Outlaws.
Distract him, Nyx.
Star Wars Outlaws is the odd one. It didn't die immediately, but its launch underperformed against massive expectations. The franchise license and big budget couldn't guarantee word of mouth or sales that met internal goals. It undercut other releases schedules and showed how even huge IPs can stumble if the marketing, timing, or audience reception is off. Outlaws is the almost case. It didn't collapse overnight, but it underlined how fragile AAA performance can be in a crowded release window. Why it matters? A license is not a free pass. Even Star Wars needs a product that resonates on gameplay and value, not just name recognition. Quick check-in. If you're into this kind of what went wrong breakdown, hit like and tell me which of these launch bombs you want me to deep dive next. I'll do a developer postmortem breakdown on the top pick, what they promised, where they missed, and what they'd need to survive. Drop it now. Okay, what's the through line here? Live service and multiplayer are brutally competitive. If your launch is unstable, monetized badly, or simply doesn't deliver on the promises in the trailer, people leave fast. Some titles implode because of bugs, some because of bad design, and others because they simply can't find an audience in a crowded market. If you bought any of these at launch and feel burned, two practical things. Check refund policy if you're eligible, and search official statements. Devs sometimes issue refunds or offline patches. For preservation fans, keep an eye on community projects, private servers, and modders. A lot of dead games live on thanks to fans. Which collapse surprised you the most? Drop the title and the reason you think it failed in the comments. I'll read them and pick the best hot takes for the next deep dive. If you want, I'll also make a companion video that maps the exact launch date timeline for one of these and shows the patch notes, PR tweets, and player count graphs. Say the game and I'll make it. If you like this list, subscribe for more dev postmortems, launch autopsies, and what could have saved it breakdowns. This is NoRTX Gamer. Catch you in the next one.